So good morning. As she said, my name is Aaron King. I'm coming all the way from Sacramento, California. I know a couple of my California people are here, so shout out to you guys. She hasn't made it yet. Okay. Well, like I said, good morning. Good morning, everybody. We'll try that one more time. Good morning. There we go. So, like I said, I'm here from Sacramento, California. I'm an assistant nurse manager over at UC Davis Health, Trauma and Medical Center, kind of a big fish in a small pond in Sacramento. I'm also a first-year PhD student over at UC Davis. Please don't throw any fruit or vegetables at me. I know I'm in foreign space right now. But my presentation today, like I said, it is Barbershop Health Talks. It focuses on the unique way that we presented the barbershop intervention in our community. I was going to be presenting along with Carter Todd, but he is unable to make it today. So we'll go ahead and get it started. Okay, it works. Perfect. So objectives, everyone likes objectives. So our objectives for this presentation is to understand the history and significance of the barbershop influence on Black men's health, explore the impacts nurses have away from the bedside through innovative approaches to community interventions and health education, and discuss the importance of community partnerships and coalition building in the development, implementation, and evaluation of programming. So we'll start with a little bit of a history about barbershops. I know we are all very familiar with barbershops and the whole barbershop phenomenon in our communities. It was interesting, we were having a conversation in one of my class, and a member of my cohort was like, well, how do you know that there's gonna be barbershops where it only serves Black men? Okay, so you're gonna learn a lot in these 4 years from me. The rest of the cohort left, including our professor who's from England, so he knows what's up. So, history of the Black barbershop. Make sure I'm on the right slide, cool. So, what most people don't know is that most Black barbers in the 19th century were enslaved men who were actually leased out to other businesses to perform barbering services for predominantly white, wealthy clientele. There was also a group of free men who would also work for a little bit of money on the side here. But it wasn't until a big shift that happened between the 1800s and the 1890s around the emancipation that led to the opening of Black barbershops that actually served Black clients. And that, as other barriers are created, laws started to be instated about the services of barbershop to kind of limit, you need licensing, kind of like what we've seen here. So we saw lots of schools open up of barbershops, which then again became a barrier for our Black men to become barbers. In 1934, Henry Morgan opened the first national chain of barbershops. I think there's another one, Murray's also exists, and it's the Tyler Barber College. The barbershop was a founding industry that really boosted the African American community and really led men to become entrepreneurs in the community. I added this slide last minute, but I just wanted to show a little love for one of my cousins here. He's from Los Angeles, coached a lot of famous people, but I really added this slide to really focus in on, I'll do a quick introduction. This is my cousin Lonnie. He's a barber. He goes by Smoke, which is kind of funny. He's pretty dark complexion. But so this just to really show you the connections that you have. A lot of his clients he's come across have been cutting them for many years, form relationships. They grow into different areas, rich and famous celebrities or wherever they may go, but they keep that barbershop, that connection with their barber, because it's a trust that you have there. So the Black barbershop historically has been a venue of safety, right? Within the Black neighborhood, we go there to discuss life, sports, women, everything, right? And you really build a relationship with the barber that you have. Very similar to a salon and your stylist, you really let out a lot of information that you probably wouldn't tell most people. I tell my wife everything. She's here in the crowd, but I just want to let her know that because she's gonna be like, So, sorry. So, as we go on and we look at other areas of Black culture and how it's become, for a lack of a better word, colonized, and we start to see from Black hair products, right? We see a lot of companies that own Black hair products. I can't think of anything right now, but a lot of these companies that we use are predominantly for Black hair are owned by really big companies that are led by, other cultures. And we've seen recently, even in media, that it's become popular for other cultures to start wearing things like bonnets and things like that, and upping the prices and selling it. But the barbershop has really been true, right? You could think of a lot of different brands, sports cuts, super cuts, all those kind of different barbershops, but that don't really service primarily Black clients. So you don't see this big chain emerge that really targets Black community or Black men specifically. So understanding that, you know that most of these barbershops are going to be locally owned. They're going to be in our communities, from our communities. They're going to be other barbers from our communities that are really woven within the people that they serve. It really, when you start to understand what the barbershop does in these relationships that you have, the people that come into these areas, no matter where I live, if I move out into, $1 million homes or whatever, I still have to come back to my old community to get my hair cut. So it really starts to cross these socioeconomic lines and it blurs it, right? So when I'm sitting in a barbershop, no one knows that I'm a nurse. No one knows that I'm working for my PhD. No one knows my background. I don't know the guy next to me as far as his background. But it really becomes this really common touch point where you could touch people in all these different areas. And I think that's really where became so innovative about the approach, which I will talk about next. So the barbershop health the barbershop health interventions, we'll talk a little bit about where it kind of started. So it was pioneered in the 1980s by cardiologist Dr. Basil Kong and Dr. Elijah Sanders. At the time, they received grants to really go into the Black communities and do some hypertension interventions and educations. So that led them to start a program based out of the church. And so during their events, during their time with their intervention, they trained hundreds of members of church to do blood pressure screenings, educations, those kind of things. What they really noticed during their time was that they had low amounts of Black men. So they were trying to figure out how do we reach Black men? And so with some of the grant funding that they had, they were able to educate a number of barbers. So 20 barbers at 6 different barbershops, and really use those men as the educators, or I believe the word that is used is like the community scientists. To really help educate these members or the clientele in the barbershop. And they had a big turnout, right? And this intervention went on to start in salons with Black women. So the approach really paved the way on what we practice today on church-based barbershop and beauty salon programs that we see all across the U.S. have become pretty popular. So the Black Barbershop Outreach Program, I'm not sure if anyone has heard of that program, but there's been plenty of programs that have kind of come out and have done targeted interventions in their neighborhoods at 1 or 2 shops. But what was interesting about this program was it was a program that was with national reach. Give me a second, sorry. So podiatrist Dr. Bill Relaford started in 2006, and he has screened over 30,000 men for diabetes and hypertension. He organized over 1,150 Black-owned barbershops across the U.S., leading over 5,000 volunteers. And so what he did is he established areas, different shops across the country. I was actually in the picture here at the bottom. I'm a lot skinnier, but I was able to participate in one of the events in Redding, California. So not many people from California, but Redding is up north. It's like 0.8% black, so it was a short day for us. So what he did was he was able to do one Saturday where barbershops across the nation during that whole time, volunteers were in the barbershops, checking blood sugars, providing education, checking blood pressures, providing education. And this approach was very innovative. It took our intervention from one single barbershop to hundreds and thousands of barbershops. He actually sent kits across the country with everything you would need to start up: education, blood pressure cuffs, AccuChecks. All of that is very innovative in that approach. And so I thought that I would definitely want to mention him before I go into the work that we're doing, because it was really been an inspiration to think outside of what is already existing. So our barbershop intervention program. So this is actually Carter here, a picture with a member. He is actually a graduate also from UC Davis. He did his master's research on his study focused on increasing the number of African-American men in nursing profession. And so he accomplished this by doing interviews in barbershops. So grabbing men in barbershops and really trying to understand why we don't have much of a presence. What is the barrier? So he did 7 qualitative semi-structured interviews that took place in 3 barbershops in Sacramento. So the 4 common themes that he found was knowledge around class navigation, so how to get through school for entering the profession, and then the stigma that exists, that nursing is primarily what women do, right? And then black men believe that it is a viable career path, but just the gender roles is what the barrier was. So I put this on here because Carter was my partner in this program, and so his work in the barbershop health, his research, and my experience with the barbershop health outreach is what led us to come together to create something for Sacramento area, something based out of our chapter. So I'm gonna read a couple. Well, I guess I can't read the quotes; it's kind of hard. But you could read a couple of quotes of what some of the men. Sorry, I pulled out some of my grandma. Sorry, what some of the men were saying during his interview. She loved me for that. So before I start to talk more about what we accomplished in 2021, I want to talk a little bit about what led to that. So we had this whole idea of turning a barbershop and creating a health fair based out of our barbershop. And so we began getting volunteers, getting sponsors. We had a location, we had parking, and so is the story for the last 2 years, COVID, right? And so COVID really shut us down, and it kind of put us in a weird space because we were like, how are we going to accomplish this? We had so much momentum. So what we decided to do is to pivot and come up with a way that we could bring the barbershop to a live platform, right? Because who are we as healthcare professionals to say, hey, everybody, I need you to mask, I need you to, safe distance, but come to our health fair. There's going to be like thousands of people there, right? So what we did was we created a partnership with our sister chapter here in New York, Greater New York Black Nurses Association, and we hosted a live stream for 3 hours. The content was not, the purpose of the content was not to be digested or watched in whole. Like, I didn't imagine anyone to sit there for 3 hours. But it streamed into televisions in different barbershops. And so the goal was for people coming into the barbershop, waiting for their haircut, to watch on TV and get some information. Maybe it just sparks conversation, right? So half the stream, like I said, was recorded in Sacramento, and the other half of the stream was recorded in Brooklyn, New York. We were live inside a barbershop. And so we brought in all Black men to talk about health, right? All healthcare care professionals. And then outside of that, we brought in community leaders, people to come and speak, someone that they can recognize. And it was really well received. We partnered with about 5 or 6 barbershops in the Sacramento area, and we had our members stationed in these barbershops that were able to collect surveys from men coming in and out of the barbershop. And some of the big things that we heard was, these are just honest conversations. These are conversations that we'll have with just another person. You really change what healthcare, what a doctor, what a nurse looks like, to see people on stage in jeans and a t-shirt and Nikes, right? Just to see a regular person outside of the white coat and the degrees, and all the initials, the alphabet soup behind our name. Just a conversation, right? I have an uncle that doesn't want to get vaccinated. I have an aunt that doesn't take her medicine. I have, just to have these conversations and let them understand that whatever they're experiencing or whatever's keeping them from seeking care is the same thing that we experience in our own family. I just want to make sure I got all the highlights. But yeah, some of the topics that we covered: manhood, fatherhood, COVID-19, just a whole slew of things. So these were a couple of the quotes that were from the data that we collected. And you can see here, like I said, I really enjoyed the different speakers that shattered the image of how doctors should behave and dress. Personally commit to annual checkups and encourage friends of my age to do the same. Discourage my community from using the internet to self-diagnose, but instead seek medical help when needed. So this really resonates with, where is the messaging coming from, right? When we talk about what were the barriers for many people in our community to get vaccinated, and I think it comes from, who is the messenger? Where is this information coming from? And so these kind of conversations really allow people to trust someone, right? When we talk about the amount of misinformation that was online, whether it be on TikTok or Instagram, where people are sharing these stories about, their uncle or their cousin that got vaccinated and they had this reaction and all these things, it really comes back to, I could trust this person because they look like me and they share a lot of that experience with me. But this person online, I don't know. They're just telling me to get vaccinated. And so this is the key to these interventions that we do in communities. And so understanding that having something available virtually could touch more people. I don't know what happened. Oh, there's a video. I don't know if it could play. There we go. Or maybe he's doing that. I don't know. I'm going to try to play it. We'll see. Okay, I don't know what I did. Uh-oh. Oh, he's doing it. Would you be able to play the video? So it's just a trailer of the work that we did. Sorry. Didn't get to check where. So this was a trailer of the work that we did. We also provided some COVID testing outside the event. We were at like a historic theater in the community that had a barbershop actually connected to it, so it worked really well. We were able to have a stage and do interviews, and then also take some shots within the barbershop and do some interviews there. I was hoping that we could get to play. No? Sorry. Well, it doesn't look like it's going to play.
We're going to fix it, guys.
Oh, okay, sorry. Sorry, they're working on it. So a little backstory, I guess I could kill some time while we figure this out, It was interesting for the live stream. Oh, you got me? Thank you. For the live stream, it was dealing with our brothers and sisters over in New York is very different. Um, we were trying to plan like months in advance, like let's do a tech run, let's do this. And they're like, oh, yeah, let me check my availability. And then like a week passed by, we get nothing. And I'm like, what is going on? So I want to say it was like 10 days before we were supposed to do this live event. They were like, yo, what's up? Let's do a tech run. I'm like, are you kidding me? So, I have kids, I work, Carter has kids. We all have these different schedules to navigate. And I was like, hey, I could give you my tech guy's number and you guys could kind of run it through the phone, I guess. I don't know. And so we actually didn't have the opportunity to check our technology until the day of the event, like when we were actually doing it. And so the content started in Sacramento and we did about a 45-minute stream. And then we go to switch over to New York and we're like, oh my God. And it switched and I was like, oh. I was like, thank God. It was, we had like 100 and something viewers, and I was like, is this when our stream going to stop? So it was a very amazing experience. We had a couple of drinks afterwards because I was super stressed out. And then just the timing of having people come in and talk, and, someone could be 10 minutes late, there could be traffic, and you're like, we're live, right? And so it turned out to be a really great event. We actually had a local comedian that hosted. And he was hilarious. And one of the things that he said, we were talking about blood pressure, he said, yeah, when I was little, I used to get a lot of pressure from the bloods. And it was just, it was so funny. It was so funny. I had to stop to laugh. I'm like, did you come up with this material? Like before, were you just looking up like healthcare things to make jokes out of? It was so funny. But we also kind of put in some DJs. We had some live music. We were able to stream on LinkedIn, Facebook, and LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So we had quite a few viewers. So it was great. Oh, try the clicker. Sorry. So just the play button on here? Maybe the link might not be working. It's fine. We might be killing too much time. Sorry, I kind of hear him talking. I don't know if it's working. Is it working? Let's see, thumbs up. It should be here. This is unfortunate because I have 2 videos. It's not going to play? Oh, it's white? Okay, we'll just go back. We'll skip that slide. Sorry. Sorry, I'm going to go back. Because sorry. All right. So this leads us to what we accomplished just this year. And so I'm not sure if many of you are aware, we had a mass shooting in Sacramento in, I believe it was April. It was the biggest mass shooting that we've had in Sacramento. There were 7 people that lost their lives that evening at a nightclub. And so when looking at themes for episodes, we wanted to pivot away from the live, content, just because it took up so much time and so much effort, and I was stressed out from the whole event. But we wanted to do pre-recorded episodes and see if our content had the same impact. And so our theme for this episode that we recorded focused around gun violence prevention. And so we set it as like a more of an intimate interview setting where we sat down with community leaders. One of the gentlemen that we had the pleasure to sit down with was Dr. Ian Brown. He's a trauma attending who's also actually Black and from Chicago. And he was able to talk about the services that are available at UC Davis, which is one of the trauma hospitals in Northern California. And so he talked about the trauma, the wraparound program, which focuses on education and other resources that are offered to our men and women that come in that are victims of violence. So we don't just send them out to the community, but we actually try to remove them from the situation that led to the trauma. We also interviewed the club promoter from where the shooting occurred, who really shared his experience in a really intimate way. You know, hopefully it'll play, but I have his recording that kind of talks about his experiences that night and what they've done to provide resources for the people that work there. He actually knew a couple of the people that lost their lives that evening, so he shared that with us. And then at the end, we wrapped it up with the healthcare professional. So I'll see if it plays now, but that's what our first episode wrapped around. And so we really kind of want to change the way that we deliver this content, and hopefully it will have the same impact in an episodic way. I also have a couple quotes from people who've watched the episode. So we'll see. I don't know if it'll play. No videos will play? Okay, because sorry, these are quotes, excuse me. I guess I have quotes first. So these are quotes from the episode, from what people said about the episode that we have. That's actually a picture of me with my Barber boots. But so it's nice and formal, geared towards specific needs of our community. I have more awareness of at-risk situations and compassion for those who experience gun violence. I liked that the episode had actual persons involved in gun violence. And I can't read the side because of my angle. But really positive feedback on the method of that we decided to deliver this content. And then this is the video. This one won't play either? No? There's no video? This one? It's just a picture? Oh, okay. So this was a conversation, it's fine. This is a conversation that I had with the physician here, Dr. Ian Brown. Our Carter had it with Dr. Ian Brown, and then right after that was the story that the gentleman shared. One of the victims was a local lady. She was unhoused, and so she was living in that community, and they really built a relationship with her and provided meals and things for her. But she just talked about what it was like to realize she was one of the victims. A lot of what the employees went through, that usually the security guards, everyone that was standing outside the barbershop, and how it felt, and what exactly they were able to do for these people that were involved. I'll skip along. So looking at next steps. So looking at the work that we do with the barbershops, what are our next steps? So lessons learned and next steps. So we know the power of racial concordance, for you those who don't know, is the ability that we have when we share this racial background, the ability that we have to build this trusting relationship. A lot of the community or people that whether it's patients or anyone that we're serving, for them to really connect with us because we share that same background with them. There's a trust that is automatically there, right? It was talked about earlier, we were at the conference, you look across, you're like, yo, right? It's the same thing when you come into the hospital. And so a lot of the men, when we have these conversations, when we talk about vaccines or anything, they feel like they could really, like there's nothing in it for us, right? That we have more of a connection with them than we do with this overall hierarchy of healthcare. And so we're able to get in and have these honest conversations and answer questions, and they trust where the information is coming from. Breaking down the cycle of mistrust. So understanding when we enter in these communities, right, these barbershops, we have to stop doing what has been done to our communities for years, which is taking, right? And so understanding that when we come into these communities, that we need to be able to provide some kind of compensation for their time, right? And so we had raffles for people filling out surveys. We were able to pay the barbers that were involved. We were able to give money to the barbershops because we understand even if we're just collecting data, that's still taking, right? And we know that historically we've always been taken away from, right? Our bodies, our everything. And so understanding that, even though we look like everybody else, that we are still representing healthcare, and there's a huge mistrust there, right? And so this is our touch point, our opportunity. So placing the community at the center of care. So interprofessional education. This is something new? No, everybody knows this? Yes, it's what we do every day as nurses. And so understanding that historically, interventions with the barbershops, it's cardiologists going in talking about hearts, right? It's oncologists or cancer nurses coming in and talking about everyone staying in their lane, right? But as nurses, we know that's not what we do, right? At the bedside, we work with plenty of disciplines, right? We work with physical therapy, social work, everything. So why not think about bringing that model and looking at the Black community, whether it's Black men or Black women, right? Why not be the nursing or the group of nurses that bring in resources from multiple disciplines, right? So we're not just focusing on hypertension or diabetes, but we could look at prostate cancer, breast cancer, right? So that is the approach that we really want to bring with this intervention, is we want to look at stuff outside of our lane, right? And so that's one of the big things. The other thing is collective impact. So shifting to not only bringing people who are healthcare professionals in, but also bringing in community leaders, other community organizers that are already doing the work, right? So many times that we come from either academic institutions or healthcare institutions, and we're like, oh, we want to do this, and this is how we want to do it. When there's people already doing that work. Why not support and uplift those people, right? And it starts with getting their brand out there, a little bit of funding, maybe some person power or manpower or woman power, however you want to say it. This is where it starts, right? It's supporting these groups that are already doing this work and have track records, right? We can't be coming in, first day on the job with our degrees talking about, okay, I could open up a shelter. Those things are already there, right? So, and then same barber, different cut. So looking at how is it that we can be innovative, right? That the racism in nursing report that came out not too long ago, I think it was the beginning of this year, and they talked about racism in research specifically. So what does that look like? We understand that many of the innovations or the research that we're doing is not being published, is not being funded. And so understanding some of the interventions that are targeted towards our community, we have not been able to create a lot of innovation there. And that is because we don't have the funds to do it, because no one's here to support our kinds of projects. And so looking forward, I'm looking to validate this approach to education, to reaching our Black men in barbershops. And at this point, it's going to be the topic for my dissertation. Where it goes, we don't know. I know hopefully it goes to graduation in 4 years. But the topic that I really want to look at is organ and tissue donation and how we can educate our brothers and sisters about that. And understanding that although race is not involved in how we select donors, it has a high, you have a more statistically, the probability of matching with someone with the same racial background is higher. So there's going to be a lot of us that are out there looking for organs, and we're not going to get them because we won't match. And so I don't think a lot of our community understands that. And so to have people that look like us come onto an episode and share their stories, to have people who are recipient of organs come on and share their stories, and to have families come on that have been donors, and to talk about the amount of lives that they influence and the change is where I'm gonna go with that episode. So these are my references. Just wanted to thank you all for sitting down, and I'm sorry about the tech issues. My time is going to be a little off because of the videos, but I could now open it up for any questions. This is our QR code if you want to get in contact with me. I think it's for my chapter, but if I get a lot of text, I know it's my personal. But I'm open to take any questions, comments. I actually do not have any of that information. I know that we are wanting to do kind of like a combination of pre-recorded, and we were also going to try to do some live. And I think we'll be able to start to do a live event with kind of more of like the healthcare or health fair platform. And at that, we won't be just providing information, but we want to have like on the ground testing, on the ground, like actually offer services. Because I think that's, also a problem is that we don't ever actually provide, right? And we know that insurance and things like that become barriers. Even though people have information and they have the intention to go seek help, that there's other barriers that exist, and one of them being insurance. Mm-hmm. Yes, miss?
Thank you for the information. To me, it was very informative. I have a comment and a question. My comment is, when you mentioned about organ donations, me as a nurse, I seen it on my daughter's driver's license that she was an organ donor. And I'm like, wow, why are you an organ donor? And she explained it to me. And then I seen it on my son's driver's license. And I said, you know what? I need to be an organ donor also. So when I got my driver's license, I registered for that as well. So our kids can teach us. My question is, say I wanted to start this program where you said they went into the barbershops in my community doing the blood pressure checks and A1C, and the kits were sent out. How do I do that?
So for the group that I covered earlier for Dr. I can't remember his name. So the Barbershop Health Outreach Program, I've been kind of looking to follow up with him, but it's been kind of, I don't know if the pandemic kind of lost the wind. I know they were creating an application, and that was a program that that was the actual program that went to all those different locations. But I haven't been able to get in contact, because when we wanted to do something, they were the first people that we tapped, right? Because we didn't want to take the approach of let's create our own. We're like, let's just go with how can we work together, right? And so that's kind of like what I was highlighting. And to touch on a little bit on the organ and tissue donation, that DMV is a common touch point, right? But we understand that communities like New York, where a lot of people don't drive or don't get their driver's license, there's not going to be a lot of, and at least what I've seen from the literature so far, that is also, a common touch point for donors, and so they miss out on that opportunity there. And we don't, I've worked a couple years, not, I did 5 years in the ICU, but I know that end-of-life care, that's when we're talking about organ donation, and it's like a tragedy, right? And it's like, how do you have that conversation? I didn't work in a predominantly Black community. I worked in a predominantly Hispanic community, and a lot of the same things exist, where it's not just cultural, but also religious, where they believe they want to be buried in part, so.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
So first I want to thank you and applaud you for going into those spaces and having those crucial conversations with Black men and Black boys.
Thank you.
So needed in this day and age, and especially during the pandemic. Everything was just convoluted and compromised, but I wanted to follow up on her question about how they chose which cities and how you chose to partner with which communities for Black Barbershop Talk. Atlanta, Georgia, significantly black community lived there for probably over a decade. And just such a great need to have those type of crucial conversations, A1C, diabetes, but more importantly, the gun violence, some of the other things that you touched on. So if you could just expound on that, I would appreciate it.
So currently, with the Barbershop Health Outreach Program, we actually reached out to them because, like I said, like Reading, that's not it for diversity, right? But we reached out to them and we were like, hey, we have a barbershop, we want to be a part. And at the time I was a nursing student. I don't know if I said that, but I was a nursing student. And so that's how we got on board with them. But when I was able to move back to Sacramento after nursing school, I was still seeing barber, capes with the logo on it. And so they were definitely in Sacramento. I can't speak for outside of Sacramento. The physician that put that on, he's actually not even based in California. And so I'm sure he had the Bay Area, San Diego. But like I said, I tried to reach out to his organization even recently, and I haven't heard anything back. So I'm not really sure if maybe I need to just try to find him directly or direct contact. But yeah, that's where I've been with that. Was there another part of your question? I'm sorry.
No, that was good.
Oh, okay, yeah. So hopefully, so what we're looking at now for the episodes, we really want to make sure that we have Black men represented in these episodes, right? And so that's easy, right, for cardiologists. There's like a whole organization of Black cardiologists. But when you start to get in these other little niche areas, right, it's going to be a little bit more difficult looking for a nephrologist or things like that. And so, I'm a member of MBNA also, and so we really want to, and we've talked to Dr. Dawson about this, that we really want to bring the programs to other chapters. We've already got on New York, who's just ready, and whenever we're ready to go, they're ready. But other chapters have resources too, and so if we're able to bring these episodes and they can record them in their cities, then we could still be able to disseminate the information. It doesn't all have to take place in Sacramento.
So my last little comment, I know you had other questions.
I thought she had the mic, but go ahead.
She did. She passed it on. You see her pop that over to me. You made that comment about your grandmother, and you talked about the gender, the stigma of men in nursing. But there's a big stigma with men in terms of healthcare. I mean, we don't get our grandfathers, our young men to seek health until your grandmother or your mom or your sister tells you to go. And so I think there needs to be more emphasis on that. But you started in the barbershop, but how are we going to continue to port this but have those crucial conversations with Black men? There's an all-out war on Black men. That's just my personal preference or my perspective on that. And there needs to be more done towards the Black man to elevate, to educate, and uplift.
Thank you so much. I think, yeah, and I think that honestly it starts with conversations and being present. I know a lot of Black nurses and Black doctors that don't go to checkups, right? I don't think it's just our common community, but it's just in general. And I think looking back, and I know you mentioned my grandmother, she did not trust doctors for very valid reasons for a very long time, right? Not only as an African American, but as a woman, like there was no trust there. And looking at our newer generations, I like to describe myself as a geriatric millennial. We here. But looking at our new generation, there's definitely just kind of like more of, I don't want to take pharmaceuticals, I don't want to take, it's just a different, it's not like more of like, I don't trust healthcare. It's like, I don't want to be involved. Like, I want to do everything to stay away from it, right? Where, my grandma's generation is like, oh yeah, my feet swell up all the time. It's cool, right? And so I think it's definitely like the messaging needs to start to change, but to really take ownership. And that's what I talk to when I speak to new nurses and other nurses, that we really need to take ownership of this mistrust in healthcare. I understand it wasn't there when I was there, right? And when we talk about these other communities, white communities and things like that, and racism that happened before they were here, like, just take ownership for it. Like, I know I wasn't here, but now I'm a member of it, and so I need to change it. And that's really the importance of us being out there in the communities and doing this service. We have a bigger obligation than just at the bedside or, in teaching. But if we could really start to take our people out into the communities and build that trust.
Geriatric millennial,
Hey.
also established in 81. So, yes. My husband is a barber, and I purposely came here because I go in and out of that shop a lot, running him lunch, taking our teenage boys. And so I've definitely put my toe in the water of trying to have these conversations, and fully agree with you that this is a different generation. And when we look at where we are represented, it's the herbalists online, folks who've studied YouTube University and have tinctures and teas, but there is such a low representation of us. I'm living in Bellingham, Washington, where we're 1% Black community. So the entire Black population goes through the Black barbershop. Shout out to Busy Bees.
Hey.
And so my question really is that, like, I do talks on establishing care before I do anything else. And we don't have a single Black primary care provider in our county. I'm cardiovascular nurse practitioner, so that is my question and my comment. Like, we have more representation in nursing, but as far as primary care and keeping people connected to services after these talks, I hear you when you say we have a higher responsibility. In the networking event last night, we had a lot of conversations, those of us who have day jobs and side hustles and. And so I'm wondering if there is like a pipeline, a connection of even a scholarship fund with the Black Barbershop Health. I can't remember the whole name, but that was amazing. I've already pulled up the link, but I'm wondering, like, how do we not just inspire nurses from our community, but also primary care providers and keep that going so that folks aren't in turn thinking of the barbershop as their primary care, because that's what they do in my community. They're like, where's Devin? When's she coming back? I'm like, I don't work here.
You in there sweeping hair, that's funny. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I know that even in Sacramento, we were trying to create, and I wish there was like more of a national, but just a database of like Black practicing nurse practitioners and doctors to kind of, so people entering in new communities can find primary care. Because there's definitely, like, oops. I'm sorry. Go for it.
In Colorado, we developed a My Black Colorado. And so someone took the initiative to develop a website that lists Black so that makes you an ideal.
Yeah, definitely. Bringing it to other areas, I think it would be great. But I know that one of my neighbors, and believe it or not, like, could not find a physician, like a primary care, but they were limited to a system that was like their native language was Spanish. Not like they spoke Spanish, but like he comes from Peru, and so he's like, some of the things, like how I express myself and I'm explaining things, it's not like formal Spanish. And so if I have someone that has that background, they could understand what, like, he was visiting for months and it was GERD. It was like, it was super simple, right? And but he couldn't express what was going on, and the doctor's like, I don't know, and they're doing all these tests, and it was GERD, right? But I think there's definitely that. But yeah, I think it starts with carving out time. Because to tell you, like, I was going to a lot of barbershops and establishing partnerships, and off the jump, as soon as I walked in, they knew I wasn't from there. No matter what I was wearing, everyone's like, who are you? Like, it's not just because I'm Black, I get to just walk in any space. They were like, who's this? Like, what's up? Like, what you need? Like, they knew I wasn't from there, right? And so to really understand that when you enter in, and you do need to establish that trust with these individuals, right? Just being Black ain't it, right? And so it starts with that. But since I know you said your husband is in the shop, if you could even just pull out Sundays, because we know that's when barbershops are closed, and Mondays. I don't know where that came from. Probably church, and I don't know about Monday. I don't know about Monday. Somebody could speak on Monday. I don't know where that came from. But football? You think Sunday and Monday because of football? I'm going to do my Googles. But definitely, Sunday and Monday they're closed. But if you could find time, outside the football season, to even have a time where you could host events or, groups and have discussions. But I think that will be the next step after we see that is validated, is to kind of see where we could get our resources. Maybe you're the Black nurse practitioner that could talk, or, I know someone that's a male. No shade, but, so try to do the man. But I think salons would be another opportunity also.
This is a great presentation. Thank you so much. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Joseph Ravenel. He's also done a lot of work in barbershops. And one of the things that he did was like doing blood pressure screenings and even colorectal, and then connecting folks to care when they needed it. You said you're not doing your dissertation. I was hoping you would continue in this work. But since you're not, can you share your thoughts on how you think barbershops can be more integrated into care? Can it be like a screening or a touch point? A lot of Black men are not going into care, but they're at a barbershop every other week faithfully, and how can we leverage that to expose them to care? I think he was doing some parts of even using barbers as community health workers and training them on just talking about blood pressures and talking about mental health and how we can use that in the future.
Yeah, I was, and I will be taking the platform of the Barbershop Health Talks as my dissertation topic. But to answer your question more specifically about the intervention, the first topic I thought about was prostate cancer because we always talk about diabetes, we always talk about blood pressure. So I just kind of made my way down the list of, all the things that impact us black men outside of gun violence and, prostate cancer being one. And it was, I was talking to one of my research advisors and he's like, so what do you want to do? Are you trying to teach someone something? Are you trying to give them some kind of resource, Like you can't just, and what are we measuring, right? So if I did an episode, I'm saying, did you not know anything? Did you know something? So looking at, the reason I chose organ and tissue donation is because we could see if people actually start to register. Are they willing to register on the spot? That definitely is a behavior change, right, from what we saw at the beginning. But prostate, also lung cancer, also being right up there in black men, I wanted to look at, can we bring these services to them? I think lung cancer screening is kind of a tricky one because you have to I'll rely on some of my nurse practitioners here, but I think they just have to kind of meet there's like a checklist where and then they have the option. So it's kind of like, hey, you should probably get screened because you're a high risk, but it's still optional. And we know that in healthcare, they're not going to ask all the questions. It took enough already just to get in there. And so then they're like, well, we want to do a scan. And they're like, oh, I don't know about that, right? Just for a risk, you know what I mean? Like just for a risk, ain't nothing wrong now, right? I didn't come in here for that, right? And so understand that is also a barrier for our people. But I really wanted to be able to provide a service, like you said. So are we actually signing people up to go get scans? Are we, providing the service like a mammogram or whatever may be needed? I didn't want to get into that area if I wasn't able to provide that. And the feasibility in 4 years would be a lot. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, that's great.
Care with your processes,
Okay, I like that.
because that will be providing them care and education. And
Perfect.
then they can sign up for us to see them.
Yeah, established care right there.
Hi, thanks for your presentation. It's really interesting. And I know some of the audience mentioned, just the female aspect, the influence women have on their partners. So my question is, how have you seen this work replicated in beauty salons? And how effective has it been, not only in getting women to get their screenings, but influencing their partners to do the same? Because I know as a bedside nurse right now, when a man comes to the hospital and is really sick, I'm like, we're brought to you, my wife. The partner has a big influence on whether they actually go and get those tests done or go to the hospital when there's something going wrong. So I just want to know what work is, if you're aware of any work that's been done in the beauty salons and how effective that's been.
Yeah, a lot of the literature that I look at when they are doing studies actually will bring in beauty salons also. And I haven't caught all of them because a lot of times they take that chance to publish separately. So one for beauty salons and one from barbershops. And I think what I should do for my literature search is definitely look at both, because a lot of the studies are exactly the same. They just split the population. That was one question that came up with my research advisor, is like, can you prove that there's some kind of gender differences? Why are you specifically targeting black men with this education? Why not also provide the information for women? And so I think that having the episode, like I said, with all men and sharing their stories, if there's a different impact for women versus men, it would definitely be interesting to compare the data. Like, am I able to get more donors as men, more as men and women, or what the difference are, and if we see something there. But yeah. There is a lot of research in salons. I would even say that the trust with the beautician is actually probably stronger than a barber. My mom had like the same person forever. She would drive like an hour and a half to the Bay Area to go see her. I said, nah, 20 minutes.
So I know you said that you wanted to do your research on tissue and organ donation. Just be cognizant that there is a huge bias at the Department of Motor Vehicles. Coming from DC, Maryland, Virginia, we have the same coalition. And we found that the DMV workers were kind of talking clients out of putting that donor on their license. And so there was a lot of education that went out to those DMV workers around why it's important, and it's a choice. And so we all have that choice, but not discouraging it when clients go to renew their license or get a new license. So just keep that in the back of your mind when you're doing your research.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I wouldn't even consider that. That's very interesting. I know there was a healthcare professional. They weren't a nurse, but they said something about like, yeah, I had to come in and I had donor. I had to get that off because they were about to just take me out and take that body. And I was like, what? You think that? You know, but hey, you know. Exactly. Ooh, sweating, sorry.
Thanks. I just want to thank you for your presentation. There was actually another doctor in California, I believe he's in Stanford, Dr. Atala Brown, that does
Yeah,
a lot of the.
I worked with Dr. Atala Brown.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, he was
'cause
actually in that picture.
Yeah, I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. And he did a presentation.
Right there.
Right there, yeah.
Yeah, Dr.
And
Atala Brown, he's
he's
pretty
very-
dope. Yeah,
exactly.
emergency room doctor at
Yeah,
Stanford.
so he does a lot of that. And then to your dissertation on, transplant recipients, my sister works with Columbia in their liver transplant program, and they actually started a Black Liver Initiative program because she's the nurse practitioners there found that in their journey of taking care of these liver transplant patients that there was a disparity among, the white recipients versus Black and brown recipients. So they started the Black Initiative, and I think it's in their second year. So, that's not to give her a plug, but that's someone that, if you wanted to connect in terms of the data they have, they're doing the work. They're, going out there and creating, spaces to address the disparity in donation and transplantation in the Black community.
Thank you. Yeah, hopefully you could give me that information when we're done. I would definitely appreciate that. But yeah, like she explained, Trap Medicine, they're a group of physicians out of Compton. No, but I think they're in LA also. The work that they do is based out of, I want to say it's Compton or Crenshaw area in Los Angeles, and they're a group of physicians, and they've been doing, like, when other groups and organizations kind of like dwindled in 2020, they like ramped up, and with COVID screenings and vaccines and everything. So they're doing a lot of great work. They're physicians though, we nurses. So. Yeah, but yeah, definitely Atalo's been a great person. I'm gonna text him and be like, man, they speak your name over here in Maryland. And so I'm gonna text him right after. He's gonna get a kick out of that. But yeah, they are doing a lot of work. And so yeah, he's an emergency room physician, and Edwin next to him is actually a neurosurgeon. I don't know how many Black neurosurgeons you met. I know there's a popular one. We won't speak his name here, but but yeah, he's a young guy over there. So yeah, definitely. I'm not gonna knock him. I'm just joking.
We have about 5 more minutes.
Okay, thanks.
Good morning. I was actually sitting here trying to unpack all of my thoughts because a lot of valuable information has been shared this morning. But I wanted to connect the discussion today with actually an experience that I had yesterday at the barbershop. So I'm going to break the bro code for a minute because we all know when we're in the barbershop and the female walks in, the conversation shifts immediately from what we're really talking about, just out of respect. But I'm gonna break it for a minute just to share and connect my my information. I actually missed my flight yesterday at 2 o'clock in the evening because I went to the barbershop, had to get a fresh cut at 12:30, and my barber's always on time, and he takes like 20, 25 minutes. So I knew I had time to get to the airport. When I was in the chair, he said, "Hey, where's your friend who you brought here last time to get his haircut?" I said, "Oh, he's in Maryland." And he said, "What is it that he does?" I said, "Oh, he's an attorney." And that led to, "What type of attorney?" I said, "Oh, he's family law." Oh my goodness. That conversation led to the barber with the blade in his hand talking about his divorce. So I'm breaking the bro code.
When he's in mental health issues.
Oh my goodness, yes. So, but it was very valuable. I knew when that conversation started, I was going to miss my flight because I couldn't leave the conversation. Yeah. Many of you all are practitioners. I'm actually in administration. Yeah. I couldn't leave the conversation where it was because I recognized the shift. And he was talking about his experience with the ex-wife and the kids, and he's swinging the blade at the same time. So, so to take a minute, we just kind of talk about it, and I shared my experience with my daughter's mom and some things that I went through. We have a very positive relationship, but we recognized after my daughter was born that we were probably not going to be moving towards marriage. And we talked about it, so we had it was very healthy. But I, talked with him, and he kept on saying, "I just don't understand. I just don't understand, and why would she do this, and why would she do that?" And I said, "Man, my oldest brother told me a long time ago, you will not figure it out." And I was sitting there thinking about Steve Harvey, where he wrote the book, Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man. I'm thinking maybe we should act like a man, think like a lady. But it won't happen. Because it's you all are special, and I love it. But I was sitting here thinking about, you talked about the interprofessional approach, mm-hmm. and bringing in other, like, not just nurses. Yeah. And my brother over here talked about, somebody made a comment about the partner coming into the scenario. And I wanted to ask you, or anyone in the room, how effective do you think it would be from a racial sensitivity standpoint or cultural sensitivity standpoint to bring in some of our non-black colleagues to the barbershop so they can also understand the culture of the black being, and then how they take that information and that experience to what they're doing at the bedside?
Yeah.
Maybe just a little comment?
Yeah, when we did the live stream, it was so funny. Our CNO is a white guy, and he said, "I watched your barbershop thing." And I'm like, "What?" Okay. It's like, it was long, but, I watched about half of it, and I go, "Oh, okay." And he's bald, right? I was like, "You should come to barbershop." He's like, "Nah, I'm good. I'll do it at home." But definitely, I think it would be very interesting, like you said, to bring him into the barbershop. If we're having like a live conversation, live event, I think they could get a lot out of it.
Hi, I just have one question. Has this been done in beauty salons, do you know? Because I feel like that's equally as important.
So the pre-recording, that has not been done, but they, what's different, and I know they've done recordings before, and I know another physician or another DNP at Duke, she's doing a study right now on scripted, so it's like real scenarios but scripted, and that kind of stuff has been done before, but when you're actually having like the actual interview kind of conversation, I haven't seen that done before for beauty salons or barbershops. But like I said, I think we might have to see, because I can't prove that there's going to be a gender difference, and so I think that might be something to measure, is to get both men and women to watch it and see what the feedback is. All right, cool, thank you.